want to share them with you now. The first thing that you very rarely hear people say is that narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, is actually a response to trauma. So it's defensive. Narcissistic personality disorder is a shield that is used to keep a painful reality at bay. So when you're seeking to understand, like, why, when I am arguing with my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my husband and wife, and I suspect they're on the spectrum for narcissism, why do we get into these weird arguments? Why do they spend so much time denying, deflecting, reframing? Why can we never argue about the subject at hand? Why are we always focused on something else? It's infuriating. You try to have an adult-to-adult conversation that leads to some kind of reconciliation, which is what you would do with any other adult in a situation of conflict in any other environment if you were arguing in good faith. But here, you're never arguing in good faith, and they can't help it. It's a defensive response to trauma. So that is effectively, you can think of it like this. It's a defensive response to reality itself. Very, very important. Why do they constantly deny, deflect, reframe, and focus on something else? Because this is what they've been doing with reality itself since childhood. Narcissistic personality disorder is typically formed in highly abusive scenarios in childhood. So they deny, deflect, reframe, and focus on something else, or refocus, turn it back onto the person who's accused them of something, because this is what they do with reality itself and have been doing since they were kids. If you take a conflict to them and you point out that they've done something wrong, or they've done something immoral, or they've done something humiliating, or even done something that makes them look stupid, you're risking inflicting narcissistic injury because you're affecting their narcissistic false self that they hide behind, because it's a defense. So the defense is the false self. This is why, as people, they are very defensive. They're very thin-skinned. They're full of ideas of reference. They think everything is all about them. They're prone to think in terms of conspiracy theories against them. They're prone to be paranoid and think that people are out to get them, to ruin their reputation, to ruin who they are, because the stance with which they're living life and reality is bad. It's aggressive. It's out to get me, because that was what they experienced in their childhood. So I've got to defend against that. You come to them and you say, hey, we need to talk about the thing that you said yesterday in front of those people. Like, it wasn't cool. Instantly, bang, you're going to get hit with 10 different levels of defense that you're going to try and walk down. You won't win, because they've abandoned reality. You're stoically like trying to do a therapy session with them, a come to Jesus session with them, and you're walking along with your sincerity in one hand and your dumb facts in the other. Let me keep going through their defensive lines, and you will get mowed down every time, because they don't care about reality. They're not interested in reconciliation one bit. They don't want peace. They don't want equality. They don't want reconciliation. They don't want things to be stable and sane. What they want is dominance.
I don't want peace. I want problems, always.
They want dominance. They want their false self to dominate you, because that establishes narcissistic supply and it reinforces their narcissistic fantasy of who they are. That's the false self. This is why they're so defensive. This is why they deny, deflect, reframe, and focus on something else. They've spent their whole lives doing this. This focusing on something else, this is one of their tactics for dealing with pain. So you're bringing them pain, so they use this tactic. They reframe it, put the blame back on you, they deflect it back on you, they deny that it ever happened, or they start arguing about something else. That's a dissociative tactic. That's actually a trauma response, but it's playing out in an argument. Focusing on something else is how they dealt with the pain of reality itself. Reality and truth is no friend to the narcissist. So stop bringing it to them. They're not interested. They're interested in fantasy and lies. Self-aggrandizing fantasy, self-aggrandizing lies. The second thing that I've learned that I think is very important that nobody seems to be talking about is that the personality structure itself is delusional. Now, when you say delusion, typically in psychology, you would say that, hey, this person's on the spectrum for psychosis. But you very rarely hear the term psychosis used in the literature. It's not there very much in the literature either, nor is it in the normal parlance on Facebook forums, Reddit threads, YouTube threads. People aren't talking about the psychotic elements of this disorder. Why not? Why aren't we talking about how intrinsically delusional this is when we all know this is not like a person, this is not some weird guy on YouTube going, this is my personal belief, the narcissist has a false self. This is orthodoxy. This is mainstream psychology and orthodoxy, but we never go from the narcissist lives inside of a fantasy in denial of reality every day, every second of every minute of every hour of every day they're alive. They deny, because reality is attacking them all the time. Reality keeps trying to come through. Reality keeps trying to break in. If you're so godlike and special, why do your knees hurt? Why do your knees not work? If you're so amazing and sexy, why are these men that you're attracted to, why are they not looking at you? If you're so rich and powerful, why this, why that? Reality is constantly breaking through. They're constantly in denial and they hide in the false self. It's delusional. So if we know that a person, in any other context, by the way, for any other mental health issue, if I just said to you, hey, I have a client, if I didn't use the N word, because narcissism now is such a heavily loaded word that when you say it, people get like triggered and they start thinking a whole load of stuff, even academics, I claim, even psychologists, I claim, because it's such a controversial topic now. Anything else? So if I don't say narcissism, I don't use the magic hypnosis word of narcissism. I say, I'm a psychologist. I have a client. And every day of their life, they're just in fantasy mode. They live a permanent state of fantasy. They're pretending to be something that they're not. They're pretending to be somebody that they're not. They interact, not just with themselves. This client has to recruit other humans and force them to role play with him, his fantasy version of himself. I mean, he just lives in delusion. He wants nothing to do with reality, and he wants to do everything to keep that fantasy going. If my client wasn't abusive and didn't hurt people, but he just really needed everybody to believe that he was Napoleon Bonaparte, you would say that person is, even if you don't have a background in psychology, you know what psychosis is, you know what delusion is, you know what someone living in a fantasy world is, you would say, poor dude's psychotic. The poor dude is psychotic. We don't talk about this enough. So when you're considering